had I come along in that era. Now, I was fortunate enough in one sense that having grown up in the South and then transferred to New York, I was shifted between different levels of education. And so I was a top student in my class in North Carolina. And then I was immediately the bottom student in my class in Harlem. And I was way behind whoever was next to the bottom because the educational differences were just that great. Very painful period of adjustment. But there was no racial issue involved since all the other kids who were ahead of me were all black. And so I got through that. And then for a second time in my life, I'd gone out on my own when I was 17, and I didn't return to college full time until I was about 25. For the second time in my life, I went into an environment that was very difficult compared to what I'd been used to. And once again, I was way behind. I was in danger of flunking out of school the first semester.
Where were you then?
Harvard. It really is incredible to, for the first time in your life, in 10 years, you're a full-time student, and you're a full-time student at Harvard without a high school diploma. So there were little difficulties.
And studying what?
At that stage, I was studying just general things, but I majored in economics, and all my degrees are in economics. And again, an enormous adjustment to make, but there was no one there to tell me, all these white professors have it in for you, and that's why you're doing badly. Because first of all, I had done badly in Harlem, and I'd overcome it. I was doing badly there, and I overcame it. But
what happened at take that Harvard experience through? How long did you stay at Harvard?
Well, I graduated.
Graduated from Harvard. I'm sorry, I thought you said earlier you went to Howard.
I went there for a year and a half, and then I transferred to Harvard.
Oh, okay.
See, but I was going to Howard in the evening while working full-time during the day. So when I went to Harvard, I was a full-time student for the first time in 10 years. And so that was...
And what years did you go to Harvard? Remember?
I graduated class of 58. So that you can understand how the student would find this plausible. I talked to a black man recently, a lawyer, who said when he was in law school, he was told when he first got there that Professor X never gives black students more than a C. And he got a B+. But there was great consternation because one of the myths had fallen. But it's truly criminal what goes on in terms of using and manipulating the students to serve all kinds of external purposes.
Can you give us an idea of the kind of external purposes you're talking about?
Oh, political purposes. I just a couple of days ago was told by someone from Wellesley that there's a divestment campaign at Wellesley, demonstrations, the whole thing, that those black girls who did not want to participate in that were threatened with violence. And that's not unique. At Stanford, the Hispanic students, some Hispanic students, have complained that the Hispanic establishment has threatened them if they don't want to go along with what's being said and done. And they claim that only 15% of the Hispanic students at Stanford have ever attended a single event sponsored by the Hispanic establishment which speaks boldly in their name. And so you have this kind of thing going on at these schools across the country. Again, notice that once you let in the students who cannot meet the academic standards, you're going to end up having to let in professors who can't meet the academic standards. And you're going to have to create courses that don't meet the academic standards.
Correct me on the names and everything. Derek Bell?
Yes.
Harvard Law School, black man.
Yes.
Threatened the law school if they didn't hire a black woman.
Yes.
He's leaving.
Well, no. Well, he's taking, if I understand it correctly, he's taking unpaid leave until such time as they hire a woman of color, as he says. But he's also said that by black he does not mean skin color. He means those who are really black, not those who think white and look black. And so what he's really saying is he wants ideological conformity in the people that are hired to fill this position. That's not uncommon either. I know a black woman, for example, who she has a PhD. She's had a book published. She has a contract on another book. She's taught at a couple of very nice places. She has a devil of a time getting a job, not a job in a prestigious institution, a job teaching at a college. And the reason is that she gets shot down, blackballed, whatever, by people who don't like her ideology. That's happening not only racially, it's also happening even to where race is not an issue. Or law school, I learned recently, there was a woman who was being considered for a tenure position, and all the men voted for her and all the women voted against her because she does not follow radical feminism. And so you're getting these ideological tests, so that at the very time that there's all this mouthing of the word diversity, there is this extremely narrow ideological conformity that's being enforced wherever people have the power to enforce it.
What did you think of Derek Bell's whole plan?
Well, his chances of success will depend upon whether or not he's overestimated his importance to the Harvard Law School. I think it would be a tragedy if they caved in. And I was very pleased to see that they seem to show some backbone, which is quite rare among academics.
Now, what do you think of the press treatment of him?
He's been quite gentle.
I mean, is he a hero?
To me?
No, basically, I mean, from the press coverage you've seen, is he a hero to the...
Well, he's looked at as an idealist who is self-sacrificing and so on. I suppose one could have, if one wanted to look at it that way, seen Hitler that way in his early days. It's just a question of where that kind of idealism leads. He has launched a despicable attack on a young black professor at the law school who doesn't go along with this. A young man named Randall Kennedy, who's written a very thoughtful, intelligent article last June in the Harvard Law Review, questioning some of the assumptions that people are making, people like Derek Bell, and doing it in a very gentlemanly as well as a very logical way, empirical way. And that's not what they want. They want the conclusion to be that they want him to march in lockstep, and he won't do it. And they're doing their best to make life impossible for him.
What do you think Harvard will do?
I've heard that Kennedy, and I don't know this, I've heard that he has tenure, and so I think that he may be all right.
But I mean, what do you think they'll do with...
Derek Bell?
Yes.
I hope that they will resist it, and since it's gotten so much publicity, I'm not sure they could stand to cave into it. I was very pleased to see that Alan Dershowitz at Harvard had criticized this, and then he picked up on the fact that what Bell is really asking for is not only that people be hired by race, but that they be hired to fit Derek Bell's ideology.
What would happen if this was going on at Stanford Law School?
They'd have caved in long ago.
Stanford Law School would have?
Yes, I think so. It's a judgment call, but that's my judgment.
Why would they do it so quickly?
Just looking at their track record. They have perfected the technique of preemptive surrender.
Now, given your... Well, let me ask you about your politics. We've talked about the race issue, and what are your politics outside of the race issue? How would you describe your...
Well, I always say that my political bias is that I'm biased against politics. And I haven't been a registered member of any political party since 1972. And I really am quite disenchanted with politics of all sorts.
Why?
Well, I guess mainly just by following what they do and how they do it. That they're really quite clever at things they do, but the things they do really don't benefit the public very much. And that's not just race issues, all issues in general.
What's it, has this changed over the years since you've been watching this whole thing?
If it's changed, it's been for the worse. I see some hopeful signs. People are trying to talk about limiting the terms of congressmen. I would like to see it limited to one term. In other words, if you're going to allow a member of the House of Representatives, for example, to spend 4 years in Washington, I would rather that they change that to one 4-year term rather than two 2-year terms, because the problem is re-election. And as long as they have to be re-elected and have to raise all that money, then they're going to sell out the public interest to get the money. It's really quite simple. You know, for example, an industry like the sugar industry can contribute money to Congress, and Congress will appropriate enough money to the sugar industry, subsidies, to pay them back $1,000 on every dollar. Now, you can't get that kind of return on your investment many places. And so there's no sign that they're going to stop doing that, that either they're going to stop offering the money or that the Congress is going to stop giving the money.
We were looking at the cover of your book, Preferential Policies, an International Perspective, published by Morrow. Thomas Sowell is our guest, and we have about 20 minutes left in our discussion. In history, who are your favorite, not politicians necessarily, but who are your favorite people in history?
Oh my! Do you mean historic figures, or do you mean people whom I sort of looked up to when I was growing up?
Who do you follow? I mean, over the years, who have you followed? You know, the Winston Churchill types in the world.
Oh, I think Winston Churchill was the greatest man of the 20th century. And I find it horrifying that most American high school students do not know who Winston Churchill is.
What was so great about him?
One thing alone, I think, I think that he probably, if any one man could be said to have saved Western democracy, that one man would be Winston Churchill. That he saw the enormous dangers that led to World War II, warned against them, that if he had been heeded in time, there might have been 40 million people who wouldn't have lost their lives. But even being heeded at the 11th hour, it was enough for him to pull Britain through. Had Britain not pulled through, it's very doubtful that the United States would have pulled through. And in that case, it's highly unlikely that I would be sitting here alive.
Who's your favorite American president?
Oh, my heavens. That's a tough... Well, Abraham Lincoln, I guess. But it's a shame that one has to go all the way back to Abraham Lincoln to find a president that one really can admire in an unqualified way. I think among the modern people, in different respects, I would say FDR, John F. Kennedy, and Ronald Reagan. And even though domestically Reagan and FDR are at opposite poles, that they recognized an international danger and saved the life of this country, which without which all the other issues wouldn't matter.
Do you have an ideology, if not a political party?
Oh, I suppose, yeah. I'm a great believer in maximum freedom.
Civil libertarian?
I certainly not in the sense in which the American Civil Liberties Union is. I don't believe that hoodlums should be kept in school because of some strange reading of the Constitution. Because I think people have to recognize that all people owe their lives to the surrounding society, and that they cannot simply demolish it because it is unjust, because everything human has always been unjust. And that what you're going to do to make it better will have to be within that context. So that my tendency is to want more freedom for the individual and less... I don't want people making decisions who don't pay the price of their decisions. And that's what politics is all about. You don't pay the price of the decision. As I point out early in the book, one of the reasons we had a Jim Crow era in this country was because the politicians didn't pay the price of that. That was enormously costly to the white as well as to the black population. But the politicians who put that in didn't pay any cost for that. They drew their full salary irrespective of all that. And I want someone who discriminates to have to lose money discriminating, because, for the examples I gave in the book, people tend to back off when they start losing big money. Harlem was an all-white community. It became a black community despite organized efforts to keep blacks out, because people were losing money trying to keep it a white community. And I think people in the civil rights area have missed a bet by not trying to promote more free markets, because that makes discrimination the most costly it can be.
One of the most interesting sentences here in the book is about India, where you say that they are the most diverse country in the world with 180 different languages and 500 different dialects. Are they more of a melting pot than the United States is?
Good heavens, no, they don't melt in the slightest. They're polarized. In fact, I think one of the tragedies is we have organized groups in the United States trying to balkanize the United States, to create in the United States the enormous handicaps under which India is laboring, under which many parts of sub-Saharan Africa are laboring, due to all kinds of historical and geographical reasons. And now the United States, having escaped all that, having been blessed with having one language and culture over a distance that in Europe would go from Madrid to Moscow, having had that blessing, we're now going to pour that down the drain, and we're going to go for balkanization, not being aware apparently of what has happened in the history of the Balkans, or aware of what happens when you have people who speak different languages and have radically different beliefs trying to be in the same society.
Go back to the campus. You said that the race relations are bad on the campus. If this keeps up, what's going to happen?
Oh, they'll get worse and worse. There are already skinheads recruiting on some college campuses. There are already white students' unions being formed. there are already harassments of minority students on a scale unseen 20 or 30 years ago. And of course, then there's the reaction on both sides. It